Hi everyone, and welcome to this short session about how to make a claim for personal independence payment. So first up, deciding whether to claim PIP. So you'll be eligible for PIP if you have a long-term physical or mental health condition or disability. And when they're talking about long-term, they mean it's expected that your symptoms will last for at least 12 months. And PIP is a working age benefit, so you need to be over 16 and under your state pension age. And you can claim PIP while working. There's no rule on how many hours you can work while claiming PIP. And it also won't have any effect on any means tested benefits. So claiming PIP won't have an effect on universal credit, tax credits, housing benefit, income related ESA, any of those benefits that take into account your income. PIP looks at how able you are to carry out the following activities of daily living and mobility. So these are preparing food, taking nutrition, so that's eating and drinking, managing medication, washing and bathing, managing toilet needs and incontinence, dressing and undressing, communicating verbally, reading, engaging with others face to face, managing money, going out, and moving around. So one thing you can do if you're deciding whether or not to claim PIP is think about whether you have difficulty carrying out any of these activities because of your health condition or disability. You can start a PIP claim by calling the number on this slide. On the call, you'll just be asked basic details like your name and address, national insurance number, and details about your GP. The date that you call up to start your PIP claim will be counted as the first day of your claim. So this means that if you are awarded PIP, your money will be backdated until the date of this call. So this is why we really suggest that you do start your claim over the phone. There is the option to start your claim by post. The problem with that is that the start date of your claim will be the date that they receive the completed form, so the money won't be backdated quite as far. So we would suggest generally that you start your claim by calling the number. Once you've started your claim, you'll be sent a form either in the post or digitally to fill in, which is where you get the opportunity to explain how your health condition or health conditions impact your ability to carry out the activities that we went through before. And this is really the stage in your PIP claim where we would suggest that you do get some support, because it's your best chance to explain kind of how you struggle with those activities. And if we can kind of get the form filling right, it just makes it a bit easier for the claim going ahead. So if you do want support with filling in the PIP form, you can contact us on the emailed address on that slide. Once you receive your form, you have 1 month to fill it in and return it. But you can call up and ask for a 2-week extension if you need it, and they're always usually willing to grant that. The form will ask about what health conditions you have and roughly when they started, any medications that you're taking, any health professionals who are currently supporting you, and also how your health conditions impact your ability to carry out the PIP activities that we looked at before. So this is an example of one of the questions that asks about how your health condition affects your ability to carry out the PIP activities. And this one's looking at preparing food. So first it just asks you whether you need to use an aid or appliance to help you prepare or cook a simple meal. And when they're looking at a simple meal, they really mean a food that's been cooked from scratch and it's just a meal for one. And the next part of the question is asking about whether you need help from another person to do the activity. So in this case, help from another person to prepare food. So aids and appliances, these can be anything that you use to help you manage the activity. And it doesn't have to be something that's been specially designed to help with a health condition. So for example, if you have just an ordinary chair in your kitchen that you use while you're cooking to take breaks, this could be counted as an aid for PIP. So have a think about anything that you use to help you when you're filling in the form. Supervision is if you need someone to be with you while you're carrying out activity so that you can carry out safely. And then assistance is if you need someone to physically help you with part of the activity. Following the tick box questions, there'll be a longer question which gives you the chance to give a bit more detail about how you carry out each activity. And we would recommend that you put a good amount of description in there, kind of a few sentences about specifically how you manage and the reasons why you struggle with the activity. So what you should include in these longer answers, what parts of the activity you can and can't do. So try and break it down into the different stages of the activity. For example, with cooking, that could be standing for long enough to prepare food, using an oven or microwave, chopping ingredients, opening packaging, lifting pans. What stops you from completing an activity? So which of the symptoms is preventing you from doing each stage in the activity? Again, if you need any physical help from someone else, which would be assistance. If you need someone to be there with you to be able to do it safely, which again is supervision. And if you need any aids to do the activity and what these are. And when you're writing these answers, you should think about whether you can do these activities reliably, because in the PIP regulations it says that not only do you need to be able to do these activities, you need to be able to do them kind of to a reasonable standard. And by that they mean you need to be able to do them safely, repeatedly, and in a reasonable time period. And we'll go through what they mean by those. So first, thinking about whether you complete the activity safely. And there you're thinking about what the risks are when you're carrying out that activity. So for example, cutting or burning yourself when cooking. If you forget medication, then having side effects from forgetting the medication, or slipping and falling in the shower. And when you're thinking about risks, you should think about how often these incidents occur. So when was the last time that you fell in the shower? When was the last time that you cut yourself? And also what the consequences were. So did you sustain any injuries? For example, did you need a hospital trip, or did someone need to come and help you? And giving that extra detail really just allows the assessor to work out, how likely is it these things are going to happen to you when you're carrying out the activity, and how high is the risk. If an incident did happen, what would be the consequences and how serious would they be? So it is really good to include these details, rather than just saying, for example, I am at risk of cutting myself while cooking. Then thinking about whether you can do something repeatedly. This is being able to do an activity as often as you need to do it. So, for example, with walking, instead of thinking how far you can walk over the whole course of a day, this is really asking how far you'd be able to walk, rest for a little while, and then repeat that again. With washing and bathing, genuinely you wouldn't be expected to need to shower or bathe every day unless you had kind of a specific medical reason. So perhaps, for example, if you experience incontinence and that means that you need to shower every day. But otherwise, usually if you can get a shower kind of once or twice a week, that would kind of be seen as acceptable. With dressing and undressing, you're thinking about whether you can do that every day. So getting dressed in the morning and undressed at night. And then preparing food, it's kind of if you're able to prepare sort of one hot meal per day. And then generally, when they're thinking about doing an activity within a reasonable time period, they're saying it means no more than twice as long as the maximum period that a person without a physical or mental health condition would take. So, for example, if you would need to rest while preparing food for so long that it meant that you took, say, 2 or 3 hours to prepare a simple meal from scratch, then that wouldn't be considered a reasonable time period. So PIP looks at how you manage each activity the majority of the time. And we know that this can be difficult for our members because a lot of people have symptoms which do vary, either through the course of a day or a week or a month. And this can be quite difficult to put across, but it is important that you're able to say, if your symptoms vary, how they vary. So some people do this by talking about good days and bad days. And I would say, if you do use phrases like this, just make sure that you explain clearly what you mean by those terms and what kind of things you're able to do on a good day compared to a bad day. So I've just put in a bit of an example here. You could say, 5 days per week, I'm very fatigued, and during waking hours, I need to be resting, lying down about 80% of the time. So that would be what you mean by a bad day. 3 days per week are slightly better, and I find I can be doing some light activity about 50% of the time. So that would be what you mean by a good day. And one thing that you could do to help you communicate how your symptoms vary is to keep a diary for a week or two before filling in the form, where each day you just make a quick note of, under each of the PIP activities, whether you managed to complete the activity, and then any aids, supervision or assistance that you needed to carry out the activity. You can provide supporting evidence for your claim, and this can come from anyone who supports you or knows about how you manage the PIP activities. So this could be your GP, any other health professionals, so if you have physiotherapy, occupational therapy or nurse input, a counsellor, a support worker or carer, or friends and family. So what makes good supporting evidence? So firstly, it's up to date, so preferably within the past year. It's first hand, and what I mean by that is it's using the person who's writing its own observations rather than just reporting what you've told them. And also that it's relevant to the PIP activities. So it's talking about how you manage those daily activities that we looked at in the start of the presentation, or it's talking about specifically the symptoms which you experience, which impact your ability to carry out the activities. So some supporting evidence you can be asked for money for. So for example, GP letters will sometimes cost. And if you are going to ask for a GP letter, it's good to ask how much it would be before you agree to it, and also what kind of information they're able to include, so you can work out whether it's going to be beneficial to your claim. You can access your medical records through your GP surgery for free. So one option would be to ask for a year past of your medical records to include to support your claim. One thing I would add is that a lot of our members struggle to get hold of supporting evidence because they haven't been receiving a lot of medical input because their condition is chronic, and you absolutely can get PIP if you don't have this kind of supporting evidence. So don't worry if you don't have it, but if you do have it, it is useful to include. And if there is any delay in getting hold of medical evidence, you can send your completed form back first and then just send any evidence on afterwards, and that's fine. In most cases, once you've sent back your completed form, you'll be asked to go to a medical assessment where they assess your claim for PIP. And the purpose of this is to fill in any gaps in the evidence on your form, to check that the information on your form is correct, and also to kind of cross-reference the information. So make sure that what you've said in your claim form is the same as what you're saying at the assessment. Now, the majority of medical assessments are still happening over the phone or via a video call. So this started during COVID. If you are invited to an in-person assessment, which you feel that you wouldn't be able to attend or that it might have an impact on your health to attend, then you can request a telephone or video assessment instead. And a few tips for the PIP assessment. It's great if you can have a copy of your claim form in front of you to refer to when you're answering the questions. Take your time, so don't feel rushed. If the assessor asks you a question and you need to take a minute to think about the answer, that's absolutely fine. Like I mentioned before, think about how you manage the activity the majority of the time and try and explain why you can't do the activity. So as well as saying, no, I can't do that, try and explain what it is that's preventing you. You can also have someone with you at the assessment, so a family member or friend, for example. Usually the assessor will want to mainly hear from you because you're probably kind of best placed to explain how you manage the activities that PIP looks at, but they will usually give the person you're with a chance to add any information. You can also request that your PIP assessment is recorded, and you just do that through the assessment centre. It can be beneficial if you do need to challenge the decision, and then you just have a record of everything that happened at the assessment. So you'll receive your decision letter in the post, and this will tell you whether you've been awarded PIP, what rate of the benefit you've been awarded, so whether it's the standard or enhanced rate of the daily living component, and the standard or enhanced rate of the mobility component, how many points you've been awarded and under which activities, and also how long you've been awarded PIP for. So that's the end of this presentation on new claims for PIP. And if you do have any questions about any benefits or social care issues, then you can email us at benefits@sheffieldmegroup.co.uk. Okay, bye for now.